What's going on, boys? It's your pal, it's your buddy /687 here today with the top 5 gaming CPUs for the money as of June 2017. It's been a long time since I've done one of these lists, and a ton of new CPUs have entered the market. We've seen the launch of AMD Ryzen completely wreck the entire CPU market, and we've seen Intel, they really haven't done shit other than release some overpriced like 28 core CPU for $10,000. But we're going to be talking about some more sensibly priced CPUs, specifically the ones with the best price to performance when it comes to gaming. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these CPUs, please use my Amazon associate links in the description. You'll find links to all the CPUs mentioned, but don't open it up yet. Spoilers. And if you do buy one of the CPUs with that link, I'll get a kickback. You'd make me a real happy guy. There's also a general link to the Amazon site, which I encourage you dedicated subscribers to use whenever you make an Amazon purchase. As you know, I don't have a Patreon, and Lord knows I'm not making anything off ads, so every bit helps. Let's get into the list though. So, starting off with our cheapest CPU and working our way up, the first CPU I have is the Intel Pentium G4560. This CPU is based on the Kaby Lake architecture, meaning it uses the socket 1151 and DDR4 memory. It also has onboard graphics, in this case the Intel HD 610, which are always a good thing to have for troubleshooting, or just in case your GPU decides to die, you still have a way to browse the web. The main attraction of this CPU is that it's the first ever Pentium to feature hyper-threading, meaning it has 2 cores and 4 threads, kind of mimicking a quad-core processor. And it's also mimicking the specs as well as performance of an Intel i3. Sure, it's clocked a little bit lower than your typical i3 at 3.5 GHz, but it more than makes up for it with a price tag of $86. It's essentially made the i3 obsolete, and it's the perfect choice for an entry-level build. It also is the only Intel CPU on this list. Our next CPU is the AMD FX 8300, which has had a significant price decrease since the release of Ryzen. This 8-core overclockable CPU turbos up to 4.2 GHz all by itself. And even though the CPU uses the ancient bulldozer architecture, draws a huge amount of power, runs pretty darn hot, and uses DDR3, this CPU still can't be overlooked due simply to the core count and the price. At $98, you're getting 4 times the CPU cores of the Pentium G4560 at about the same price. Yes, the single core performance isn't even close, but if you're looking for something that does more than games, such as live streaming, editing, or any kind of aggressive workload that requires a lot of cores, this CPU is going to be far better at a very affordable price, even though it might be a little bit below the 4560 when it comes to benchmarks. Still, in my opinion, worth a little step up in price. The next CPU on my list is the recently released AMD Ryzen V 1600. This CPU runs at 3.4 GHz, is completely unlocked, has 4 cores and 8 threads, uses DDR3, and comes with a surprisingly decent factory cooler. These Ryzen CPUs crush the older FX series CPUs when it comes to single core performance, even rivaling the Kaby Lake architecture at a far cheaper price. You're getting a lot more CPU for your money than you would with an i5, which this CPU mainly competes with. This CPU features hyper-threading unlike the i5 for $50 less. And though the i5 still wins out slightly, and I do mean slightly, in gaming benchmarks, performance updates are always coming out, and I expect this CPU to one day match the i5 in that aspect. The CPU is the king in the mid-range market right now, and definitely for a good reason. Next up is the Ryzen V 1400's big brother, the Ryzen V 1600. This is where things start to get interesting. This CPU boosts up to 3.6 GHz, is based on the same Ryzen architecture as the 1400, and sports 6 cores with 12 threads. The CPU is great for both gaming and editing, and at the price of $210, about the same as a typical i5, the price is very hard to beat. It's caught somewhere between an i5 and an i7, which can be a perfect sweet spot for a lot of budget-conscious gamers. The grand champion of this video and the last CPU on our list is the AMD Ryzen 1700. This behemoth of a CPU features 8 cores and 16 unlocked threads, boosts up to 3.7 GHz, and also comes with a little fancy Wraith Spire LED cooler. Cause you know you gotta love the LEDs. Whoa! Whoa! The other Ryzen CPUs priced above this one don't come with a cooler and have nearly identical performance, so this one was a no-brainer. It rivals the i7 in performance while being far superior when it comes to productivity, and plus it's cheaper. You pair this thing with the GTX 1070 and this CPU is gonna fly through games at 1440p ultra settings, and meanwhile you'll still be able to edit and live stream at the same time. So that's the list, guys. All 5 of these CPUs are great choices for any budget, and if you're interested, like I said in the beginning, you can use my Amazon associate links and go out and buy yourself one today. You deserve it, buddy. You're at the end of the video, so you might as well subscribe and click the bell. Peace.